Only human. That's an expression we use when someone unexpectedly fails or lets us down or makes a mistake. Well, he's only human after all, right? It's a way of justifying someone's mistake, someone's failure. The Bible describes Jesus not as only human, but as fully human. And that may sound like a comforting thought, but I think a lot of Christians would prefer that if Jesus had just descended from heaven as a fully formed adult, already complete and mature and adult like. But that's not how he came at all, right? He came instead as a tiny embryo in Mary's womb, an embryo that grew into a fetus who was born as an infant, right? Who grew into a toddler and a child and even, God forbid, a teenager, right? With all the hormones of that stage and young adulthood and so on. So Jesus grew, he developed, he matured as a human being. And so think about that for a moment and all the stages of development and growth that Jesus went through as an adult male. He was fully and completely human. He wasn't some divine Superman who plopped down out of the sky, again, as a fully formed adult male. He came into the world as a baby and grew. And the writer of Hebrews really picks up on this starting in chapter 2. He talks about phrases like Jesus learning obedience from what he suffered. He talks about Jesus sharing in our humanity. He talks about how Jesus suffered when he was tempted. Think about that last phrase for a second. Jesus was tempted. Think about the ways that you and I are often tempted through things like money or power or selfishness or sex or lust or drunkenness or whatever the temptation is. And think about how that often comes to us as what we consider to be a bad thought, a thought that comes into our mind. And that is temptation, friends. And Jesus was tempted. And often we feel so bad about those thoughts we're having, but really it's nothing more than temptation because Jesus was tempted just as we are, the writer of Hebrews says, yet without sin. Jesus was tempted in every way, just as we are, as all human beings are, but didn't sin. Think about the amazing restraint Jesus showed, knowing all the power he had, that he could have done anything he wanted, and yet, when he was tempted, he did not sin. And we see this pattern throughout the Gospels, where the Gospels depict Jesus as a fully and completely human person, someone who got tired and thirsty, someone who got sad, someone who cried, someone who got weary. Jesus was a human being who lived in a body, right? He was fully and completely human. That is one side of the coin we look at in Advent. The other side is that he is God in the flesh. And we'll ponder on that more tomorrow. But tonight, I want you to consider Jesus' full and complete humanity. He was not only human, but he was fully human. And that is great news. Amen.